Hey, and welcome to another edition of the Finger Lakes Sports Podcast on FingerLakes1.com. Brought to you by Rochester Wind Sports and the hardworking folks here at FingerLakes1.com. I'm Doug Willard, and I'm one of your hosts. It's right around 12:30 p.m. It's a typically brisk autumn day in western New York. I'm flying solo today as my partner Jason Gordon. He's the Huey to my Louie, or the Dewey to my frickin' my frick to my frack. He's on assignment scouting out locations for wind meters. I think he's in New Hampshire at the top of Mount Washington. But hopefully we'll get him back in studio next month. It's been a couple months since we've talked really much kite content, so hopefully he'll be in studio and we'll be able to do more of that with him. But Jay, we're missing you. We can't wait to get you back in studio. The whole crew down here misses you, and see you soon. We've got a good little show lined up today. The guest we have today is a visible Finger Lakes outdoor fanatic. He chases the wind and adventures across all the Finger Lakes, north and south and east and west. We also have the Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters Coffee Break coming up mid-show. They're a sponsor of the show and make fantastic coffee to boot. And today's sample brews, so you know what to look for. Today's sample brews are brand new one. They have salted caramel as a new offering from them. So maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. And an extremely appropriate, especially for this podcast, Maui blend, grown within eyesight of the wind and waves of Hawaii. Okay? We'll also catch up on local board sports news, and we'll talk about things we love in that segment of the show. Let's see. As hoped for in the last episode, it's been a couple months when we were here. Schedules and life have gotten in the way, but the wind has blown. The fall winds have been a-blowing, and the wind sport folks have been a-going, chasing good conditions wherever they need to be, even out to Erie and the eastern shores of Lake Ontario, not just around the Finger Lakes. But we've been active in the Finger Lake. The days are getting shorter and colder, and the diehards are digging in to keep warm as we get out on the water. So today's guest has been a windsurfer and an accomplished one at that for a long time. He's only been well known to more of the Rochester folks for the past couple of years. I happen to be one of those Rochester folks that comes down to enjoy the Finger Lakes. But he loves windsurfing. He loves its challenges. He loves its people, and he loves its equipment. He's a regular contributor on the Rochester Wind Sports forum page, and I welcome him for that. And on that forum, he's known as Freaky G. So I'm glad to welcome Freaky G, a.k.a. Geoff Moore, to the podcast today. Welcome, Geoff.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. This is a great adventure.
It is a great adventure. Again, one of those wind sport adventures. So glad you're here. The obvious and easy way for me to get to know more about you, and we've had a great discussion before we even started here, you and I, is tell us a little bit more. Tell us about yourself. Obviously, I mentioned you're a windsurfer, but I also mentioned you are an outdoor enthusiast. I've heard that and learned that as we've talked on the shore. It's not just windsurfing for you, but tell us about yourself, where you are, where you come from, and your windsurfing journey.
Okay, well, I grew up and I was a runner. I ran track and field for 23 years, and have just always thought, one of the things that I think people should do is go outside and play, and one of the things that drove me to was exercise science and sports medicine. And those are the sort of the way that I bring things together in life, and windsurfing is something, and sailing more generally is something that my folks started when I was young, and kind of grew up from there. Actually, the first time I ever sailed at all, I think I was 6 or 7, and my folks bought a sailfish, and we took it to Skinny Atlas Lake and sailed it there at Skinny Atlas Lake.
So the early parts of your life were here in the Finger Lakes area?
I was born in Illinois, and then my dad did a postdoctoral fellowship at Syracuse University.
Okay.
And so that's how we kind of got to New York.
And that brought you here. But I know, having talked before, you haven't always been here.
No,
that was your early sailing experience.
I moved down to Texas, went to college in Rhode Island and medical school back in Texas and training there, and then did a research associate job at Stanford after I finished my medical training. And that was not actually the first time I ever windsurfed, but I started windsurfing, and there's a little sailing lake in Mountain View, California, and that's where I really sort of finally got to it.
And what would the time frame be for that?
So actually,
years?
the very first time I ever went windsurfing, my folks were into sailing, and they had a sailboat up on the St. Lawrence in Clayton, New York.
Yep.
And some of our friends had windsurfers, and on the last time I was here in New York before I went off to go to med school, I went out. We were in a place called what we used to call 40 Acres, and there was a little place, and I tried to sail, and it was awful. And that was the June of 1983.
Oh, so early.
And
jeez.
But I was still a runner, and I didn't actually start really being a windsurfer until I gave up the running back in 93. And then so it's 93, 10 years later, that I lived and worked at Stanford and took the lessons at Mountain View in the sailing lake there.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, and you have that in common. I know a lot of the guys, like Wind Kid Bill, who's been on the show before. He's a big runner, and has been, and also cycling now. And many of us were. When my knees would go, back in the day when my knees were more functional, that was our thing, and even helped to bring my relationship together with my wife. So running was an important part of it. It was also a really good outlet, I think, for my energy and my focus and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think windsurfing has kind of supplanted that for me now. So your windsurfing history brought you back here. You took your lessons out on the West Coast, kind of learning. And when do you feel like, I know you stopped your running in 93 and started concentrating more on the windsurfing part.
Other stuff.
Other stuff.
Not necessarily just windsurfing.
Okay.
But skiing and others.
So I know you in your life and in my life as a windsurfer, and of course there's more to you than that. But you're accomplished. You're a good sailor. You when do you feel like you really started to say, okay, I'm going to put some more time into this? Because I know you've taken lessons, around here.
So actually. I worked at Stanford there for a year, and then got a job on the faculty at the University of Pittsburgh. And there was a windsurfing shop in Pittsburgh back in 93, 94, and a guy named Doug ran that. And I called him up when I was still out in California, and looked up the shop, and and he said, "Well, where are you coming from?" And I said, "Well, the Bay Area." And he goes, "Oh,
you're coming to Pittsburgh?
Do you like to drive?" And so, but there is a pretty good community of windsurfers in the Pittsburgh area. I used to drive frequently up to Presque Isle in Erie, Pennsylvania. It was a 2-hour drive from my house. I used to go up there a lot because there's better wind and especially for beginners than what is around in the local lakes down in Pittsburgh.
So there are local. When I think of Pittsburgh, I think of rivers, but
there is a place called Moraine State Park, which is about 45 minutes north of Pittsburgh, and it's a reservoir. And then there are a couple other reservoirs, Pymatooning Reservoir, and so I met a bunch of people who we sailed there, and they persuaded me to take my first trip to the Outer Banks and to take a Court Larned clinic.
Court Larned.
And so I took several Court Larned clinics and did a lot of vacations down in the Outer Banks, and then Court went out of the windsurfing clinic business and I believe he purchased Dakine. And
I I didn't know that. That's That's a nice little thing. Okay.
I think he owns Dakine, or a family does.
Still,
now.
or wow.
I think still, but I'm not.
Because that company has certainly grown out of its roots.
They have, and so he was a world champion, as you may know.
Rode on Sea Trend.
So then there was. I almost bought a Sea Trend from him, but I didn't do it. Some years went by, and one of my buddies got into Andy Brandt's, and we were sort of doing some freestyle stuff at the time. I haven't been doing much of that lately, but he persuaded me to go to an ABK clinic in Bonaire, and the two theories between the way Court teaches people to sail and the way Andy teaches people to sail are very different. And one thing that I realized quickly on listening to Andy was that if you want to sail when you're 80, you want to sail the way he does. And
what way is that? Enlighten, because that's very. I would like to sail when I'm 80.
When you're 80, yeah, exactly. That's what persuaded me. But it took because. I was a jock. You were a jock. And we're male, so hold that against us. But our tendency is to force it and make overpower and use muscle more than brain. And Andy was like, no, you need to use your brain, and because the sail is bigger and stronger than you, and so that the thing that he teaches is actually how to have no power in the sail until you really want to, and that would include all the times when you are doing anything other than going back and forth. And so all the jibe maneuvers, tacking, everything it's all about luffing the sail effortlessly. And you can actually, it's hard to believe it, but when you try it on the beach and then even out on the water, you can actually, with your fingertip, hold the sail in a 30-knot breeze.
Yeah.
And so that's really obviously not about muscle power, and it's about finesse. And so it took a long time to recalibrate my motor learning so that I could sail more with finesse than muscle. And I still need muscle
sure
from time to time.
Sure you do. And it's
I
in the
like
stores.
that. But it's really more a sport about finesse. And once you approach it that way, then it becomes a lot easier.
It makes, some friends, people around here, Teddy Butcher, local guy, used to talk to me, and I took a trip out to the Columbia River Gorge in '08, and there were days where it wasn't typical conditions out there, and we were at launches without enough wind, so we were doing sail chi, and it was
that's an Andy Brandt thing. That's exactly I think I don't know if he invented it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he invented it, but there are some very useful exercises. I think probably the most, from my perspective, the most useful one is learning to luff the sail with your backhand, and so because the thing that's important about that is it gives you a really good feel for sheeting in and out, because when you luff the sail with the backhand, the center of effort is in front of your hand. So when the sail starts coming towards you, you pull on the sail. And when it goes away from you, you push on the sail. And that's just very counterintuitive.
Yes, it is.
But and it takes a long time to learn to do that. But that's how you can luff the sail and do all kinds of actually, that's really the secret. I think Andy Brandt was very insightful, and that's really the secret to all the crazy new freestyle moves that all the guys are doing.
It is phenomenal.
The young guys are doing.
The young guys. Well, and hopefully, if they followed his, if they follow his principles, they'll be doing that when they're 80.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Some of those moves are pretty high kinetic
There's
energy.
Some pretty unbelievable stuff. But
yeah.
I sit and I often and maybe people that are tuned into the podcast think to yourself when I see some of the stuff that they're doing, what state were they in when they figured, well, if I backwind the sail this way and I start with it that way and the wind's that way and I throw everything this, just the planning to think of how they're going to do that move and all the crashes, and it's phenomenal. Understanding, I mean, they've really understood, I guess, learned to understand and balance.
Yeah, I watched some, and if you've seen the what is it, Trictionary
Familiar with
videos
it.
and books. I think there's still an element of freestyle windsurfing where sailors are more in the overpower the sail and get the perfect timing type mode as opposed to balance and finesse.
Okay.
And so, but I think the good ones are all about balance, and for the really, really good ones, because you just can't do some of those things when there's power in the sail because it's just too unpredictable.
Maybe you saw, I think back in the doldrums of summer, I had on the front page of the Rochester Wind Sports website, I believe it was a gentleman down in, he's in the Caribbean, maybe Bonaire, but a light wind, and there was under 10 miles an hour wind, and he was on a big learning board. But the stuff he was doing with the sail, it entertained me, and I did go out and try that stuff. And one of the times when I was teaching my son some of the ropes of windsurfing, and it was fresh. It was nice to see, and I think it was light wind like that. It was manageable, and it was entertaining, and I could certainly see benefit to my high wind windsurfing.
Well, the thing, actually, Andy, I think, is the one, because he was down there for those clinics, and I think he really captured the Bonaire boys and sort of got them in his way of thinking, and they're really, yes, they're incredible to some of the things they do, all of them. And with no fin on the board at all,
Yeah.
and no water.
Yeah.
The water's this deep, and
with efficiency of movement.
Yeah.
Their bodies aren't doing a lot
So-
when they're flipping the sail.
and it's true the skills that you learn in that light wind stuff do help you in really high winds, and it's a little counterintuitive perhaps, but when you're jibing and the wind's 20 miles an hour and your board is going 25, 30 and you turn downwind and it goes down to 20, there's no wind in your sail there. And so you're in light winds. The sail is in a light wind situation, so it's going to handle like you're in light wind. And so if you've made those movements automatic, then that you find yourself doing things that you didn't realize you knew how to do, because then your the only challenge you have is riding the board, and looking at the water and making sure, and a little bit keeping your eye on gusts and things like that. But then the challenge in the wave riding becomes riding the board and not so much worrying about what the sail is going to do.
Well, I remember last year, I think you caught me in one of my 4 or 5 successful duck
jibes. Yeah, I remember.
And yeah, I do too.
I saw it.
It's been a while. That might have been the last one.
If he never had anybody witness it, I witnessed it.
I got it. Thank you, Geoff. and you did too. You confirmed that on the forum, and it's appreciated. But I had been practicing it in my yard, throwing the sail around, and it felt much more comfortable and kind of understanding where the board and the sail had to be, but just muscle memory where my hands were going when I was reaching for things. And I haven't practiced. I didn't have time, or haven't spent the time practicing off the water this year as much. And I've attempted 2 or 3 of them and exploded in. It wasn't there anymore. I hadn't been working on it, but I really see the benefit of doing that off the water. And like I said, in '08, I was kind of giggling as I'm watching, Ted practice that stuff. But it certainly all makes sense. It all makes sense. And I think after coming back from that trip at Canandaigua, it might have been one of the first times that I saw you, and I think it was late fall. And we're going to talk a little bit about your sails, but you also have a fairly bright dry suit. And I'd never seen a bagged Gore-Tex dry suit, and you had one of those. And who's that guy in the orange dry suit? Well, we're standing on the beach, and there's not quite enough for us, for the folks that, I want more wind. I'm being greedy. I want more wind because I want to blast back and forth.
Don't we all?
But you're out there doing like sail 360s, and not trying to knock you, but not incredibly technically high difficulty stuff, but stuff I couldn't do that you'd obviously practice, and you're getting better and getting better. And at first it was like, what is that guy doing? But I'm a converted man, but I remember meeting you for the first time when you were doing that. And
well, one of the reasons I was that is because we all go hoping for good wind, but living here in upstate, this isn't Maui, and it's not the Gorge or California, and you don't always get good wind. And one of the things that I was told at the beginning, I don't remember who might have been Court, but anyway, and one of the reasons I used to drive up to Erie all the time is because if you want to get good, the thing you have to do is, no matter what the wind, you kind of need at least 3 or 4, but no matter what the wind, rig and go and work on something. And so if you've driven all the way from Ithaca to Canandaigua, is a non-trivial drive. And so to just go and say, well, I guess I'm not going to get any sailing today, is like, no, that's not you got to go with stuff that you're going to at least get something.
I've been doing that a little bit more. I've got, thanks to Bob the Pharmacist, I've got a bigger stuff that I was, the purpose was to use it for teaching my son, but I've traveled with it more this summer and had a couple days like that where there wasn't quite enough for what I desired to do, so I put that on and had some fun. I had this big floaty board. I wasn't planing, but I was practicing the stuff. I was being you. I was mimicking Geoff Moore.
Well, I won't hold that against you. Yeah, you need a big board, and actually, once you get to when you were like in the yard, did you have your son like squirting you with water or anything?
No, I was not recreating the environment all the way.
Okay, I bet he would have liked that.
He would have liked that. Oh, no, get any ideas?
But it's at least on the ground, there's no tippiness involved, but even on a big floaty board, there's a little bit of tippiness involved, and plus you see how the sail and how the board reacts to the wind if it turns and things like that. So I think it is helpful to practice it on the ground at first, or on the beach, in the yard, wherever, and then on those light wind days, bring a barge along, and then once you get better and better. Yesterday, Scott and I were out, and it was sort of fluffy, weird wind.
We're out at Seneca. Okay.
Yeah, and but I did a few what I think Andy Brandt calls upwind 360. Up light wind. Practice those, and again, that I find particularly on a small board and out on the big lake on a longboard and light winds. That sailing front to back and being able to look at the wind and the wave and see when a gust is coming and see when going to get a chance to go back into the normal sailing position and take off again is a very handy, very, very handy thing. And I keep wanting, I forget most of the time, but I keep wanting to try an upwind 360 on the lip of waves in Seneca, but I never remember to do it. I'm sure I'm going to get smacked. I'm going to get really smacked. But if I could learn to do that, it would be such a cool move.
That would be a cool move. I'm sure they're doing it out.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would try. I would have to mimic you again. Well, we've got coming up in a couple minutes the Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters coffee break. But before we get to that, I introduced you as Freaky G.
Oh, yeah.
And I said you were a visible member of the windsurfing crew. You love, are dedicated to, would be a fantastic area-sponsored rider of Hot Sails Maui, is a sail-making company. And they make the Super Freak and the Speed Freak windsurfing sails, and they've got some performance attributes, plus they're visible. How did you connect with that? And tell us about your interest in that, because I mean, you are the Super Freak guy and the Hot Sails Maui guy around
we
here.
got.
I mean, there's others, but
yeah, there's more now. We're growing.
Well,
we're growing.
Thank yourself.
I
know there's some other sailors too.
Back in I think the first Super Freaks were made in 2003 or so, 2004. And one of the reasons that Jeff Henderson, Hot Sails Maui, wanted to make those was because he thought, and I agree, that monofilm took the color out of windsurfing.
Clear
and
plastic sheet.
back in the day, in the 80s, everything was first starting off Dacron and then Mylar, and very bright, colorful sails. And I think that was a lot of the joie de vivre of windsurfing. And kiting kind of brought attention back to the fact that that's part of what is cool about wind sports, which is that people on the beach can see all the bright colors. And one of the most wonderful experiences I had in windsurfing is sailing at Crissy Field under this Golden Gate Bridge, because it's just such a festive atmosphere with San Francisco in the background. And I think we had that on October 3rd. Everyone is remembering. That's been a long time. And so I thought, well, that's true. I think, especially with kiting coming along, we need more color back in windsurfing. And so I bought, I think it was 2007, I bought my first Freak. And then it was a very different sail. I think it's very compatible with Andy Brandt's sort of gentle luffing, and it's a much softer sail, and for meter per meter they're not as powerful as most sails, but they're bright and cheery, and everybody, you come in and people say, oh, I could see you all the way across, and non-windsurfers, the people just looking. And
they're definitely novel. They're not a novelty sail, but it is definitely novel, and
I think that's how we get people to be interested in trying. And the same for kiting, is that you have to be something they can see. And on a monofilm sail, is even if you know who you're looking for, they're often hard to pick out on the water. And the nice thing about Freaks is they're all different colors. You don't, you can get custom ones. And they charge, I think, $70 extra, or $75.
You might have to wait a little bit longer.
We have to custom order it. But then you can have your own sail, and all the other different. They make many different styles and colors, and thousands actually. I think now into the thousands.
I think it's cool that they display most of those on their website too.
Yeah, they show all the designs, and you can have an existing design, or you can make up your own. And they have an app on the website that allows you to experiment with the colors and how to design, get the design you want.
Well, I know you turned Bill Nissan a little bit to them, and he's got one now, and has sailed it a couple times. And you described enjoying it. That it was a different feel, but he's certainly a guy that enjoys a challenge and something new and understanding everything that's going on with his gear and the sport. He's not a lawnmower.
To put in another plug for the company Hot Sails Maui, not just their sails. I've bought a lot of their stuff. I've recommended it to a lot of people, and I also think that Jeff Henderson and Tom Hamilton, who are their designers, really do work hard to satisfy their customers' needs. And it's a small little company. As trying to have my own small little company, it's really hard to do. And I think they really do a great job. They have a great product, very durable, and couldn't recommend them highly enough.
They do a lot to help build community. They've got a forum.
Yes.
And I know that you take part in the forum because I've searched various things unrelated to Hot Sails Maui and Super Freaks, and gotten returns on the things I'm searching for on their forum and their discussion threads, and I found
I was lurking there.
Well, I wasn't on that forum. No, but I found insightful, intelligent discussion by a lot of people, and there were people that on the forum that didn't even sail those sails, but you were there, and they also came up with, after the Super Freak, and maybe you could talk about it briefly. They have the Speed Freak now, which is a similar thought, different application of their sail.
Yeah, so there were a bunch. Well, one nice thing about the forum is it's ridiculously civil compared to most of the forums that are out there. Everybody's nice to each other, and like Rochester Wind Sports, and it's very pleasant to be a contributor there. The several of us were interested in a freak-like sail that was bright and colorful, like the Super Freaks, but more of a slalom-oriented sail for especially for lighter winds. And again, being interested in pleasing his market, Jeff Henderson designed one, and then said, "Okay, well, we designed it, and I was one of the instigators, and so
That's cool.
and so
I thought I'd heard that before.
I
Get that out
felt
there.
like after he said, "Okay, well, I designed it. Who's going to get one?" And so I was like, "All right, I'll get one." And so that was Big Red, which I sold, but it was an 8.5.
Just
Speed
recently.
Freak. Yeah. And I think it found a happy home. I decided I just didn't need the 8.5 anymore. I have the 7.5 Speed Freak, and I'm happy with that size. But it's a more speed-oriented sail. It's got a deeper foot, more shape. It's powerful, yet it's still kind of on the soft side. When the sail comes through, it doesn't pull your shoulders out, and very rangy, like all Super Freaks at the top end. They're just very easy handling when they're really, really overpowered. Very easy handling.
Cool. Let's take a breath.
Okay.
Let's have a Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters
Yeah.
coffee break.
Yes.
Woo! So yeah, here we are, Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters coffee break. Couldn't be happier to be sampling their coffees on the show. And they're guys that get out after it. They've been doing it since the mid-'90s. I heard from Larry, one of the owners and founders of the company, that he actually got out. He works hard and plays hard. He got out for a high wind. I think he said he was sailing a 4.2 windsurfing sail in Canandaigua, and was just he was excited and stoked to have gotten out. So he's still out there and windsurfing, and we're really glad that those guys are really happy to help support us. And they've got great coffee. You and I were talking coffee earlier. We've all got our stuff that our brands and things that we enjoy. Mine happens to be Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters, and you're sampling right now. That is the Maui blend. It's grown in Hawaii and roasted to perfection in Western New York, and that cup is full. We've got it in studio here. We've got the Maui blend and the salted caramel. Salted caramel being the new one. I've had both of them, and what do you think? What do you think of Maui
it's
blend
good
so
coffee.
far?
Very nice, very smooth coffee. Very good. I like it.
And I guess the last show we had, we reviewed. There was pumpkin spice and witch's brew. We went with a theme, obviously seasonal theme, and witch's brew was way intense. And I just sticking my nose in. We didn't sample it. Sampling it and drinking it here in the studio is something new we're doing. But I got it home, and I brewed up a cup because timing just didn't work out last time for me to do that. And it was delicious. And I've since bought more. And it's surprising, truly enjoyable. It's funny. I thought that it would taste how it smelled because, geez, what, you're making me crazy. And all the other coffees that I enjoy. Gosh, that smells great. Tasted great.
Did you channel Miles Davis when you had it?
Well, yes.
Oh, okay.
Let's go with yes. We'll go with it because that sounds good. No, but I enjoyed it, and I enjoy the Maui one as well. And it does. If I never get to sail there, if I get to enjoy coffee that comes from there, that's fantastic. They could see the wind and the waves. The salted caramel has a tremendous bouquet, and I enjoyed that one. The caramel is a really strong flavor. I enjoyed that yesterday morning, and I'm not having a cup now because I'd be even more jazzed up if I was drinking another cup of coffee today. But I enjoyed that as well. A little bit, you can sense the saltiness a little bit. It's very faint. I got mostly sweet, but I also put a little bit extra sugar in my coffee. I enjoy it that way.
I gotta try it.
So that's enjoyable too. And like I said, I haven't found one that hasn't been a winner, or that I couldn't enjoy and buy a half pound of it and enjoy. Or share with friends. And so if you're heading out into the outdoors, I loved you said earlier you got to get out and play. If you're heading out to play, or if you're coming home from playing, it's nice to kind of reflect sometimes.
Sure.
I'll do that with a cup of coffee sometimes, or sometimes with a full sail session, beer. But it all depends on what you enjoy. So yeah. So I'm glad to know that you're enjoying that.
Yeah, it's very good coffee.
And their coffees are available all around. You can get them online if you go to the Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters website. They're on Facebook as well, and just an all-around good group of people to deal with. I don't think there's a lot of rah-rah. You want to buy our coffee? It's fantastic. We're doing fancy things. They're doing good things, and I think they're doing them well, and I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate that in windsurfing gear, and I think the same said for you. So Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters Coffee Break. Check those guys out. Other news in windsurfing. The WeatherFlow wind meter on Seneca Lake is live.
Yes.
It has come back from the dead. It is on as I hear from Brad, from Finger Lakes Kiters, FLX Kiters, it is on a brand new pole specifically made for it. I have not put eyes on it, but that's what he says. You've been on Seneca, but I guess not
I didn't
near
go
where
check
the meter
out the
is.
meter, no.
By the new visitor center there,
right,
in Geneva. But it's spitting out data.
It is
usable data. Isn't it fantastic?
It is. We've waited a long time, and there's other things that are coming. I think you can talk about that now.
I think so. We know you and I both heard. We were part of the effort by a lot of the local windsurfing and kiteboarding crew to who use the service and appreciate the service when it's working really well. We had some meters that were down and weren't working, and those, for the most part, hopefully were mechanical issues. But WeatherFlow and their suite of products has listened, and you alluded to there's a meter at Durand Beach on Lake Ontario that's been at a good location, but not an ideal location. We've been waiting on the United States Coast Guard, or they've been waiting on the U.S. Coast Guard for a long time, and our area, the Coast Guard squad for this area, if that's the correct or incorrect term, and they've gotten approval. There's no time frame yet, but they've gotten approval to move that meter out onto the jetty at the end of the Irondequoit Bay outlet, which will put it out on the water, out in clean wind.
Right where you need to know.
Right where you need to know. And that's convenient if you're a Rochester and more Western-based person looking for, say, anything in the north, from west to northeast. Conveniently for people that live more centrally in New York State, who want to head up to Lake Ontario, they've got another one coming online, they say, and where's that going to be, Jeff? Why don't you roll that one out?
Wasn't that
up Sodas?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure.
They've gotten approval.
They've got
like I said, there's no time frame.
Seen that one.
It's not up yet. They've gotten approval.
Right, but they have approval.
Yeah,
I think we have better wind sensors coming, and so SailFlow and iWindsurf
they're coming through.
Is coming through. And it's not just for us; it's for other sailors and fishermen and things like that. But no,
I get a little narrow-minded, I guess, when I think of these sensors. Well, they're just for the windsurfers and the kite surfers.
They're for everybody who's
people that go around
on the water, who want to be on the water, and
the forecasting they provide as well helps. Now, you also provide forecasts.
True. Well,
you use some knowledge. It's something that interested you, and seasonally, you've started posting.
I just don't think I can do it all year long. No. For the ice boarders and all that sort of stuff.
We only need 5 miles an hour.
Ice boarding, you don't need much wind, and so you don't really need a forecast for that. But that started back when I lived in Pittsburgh and had to drive 2 hours up to Lake Erie. It's like you don't just haul off and go. You got to figure out.
Based on the guy on the morning news.
Is right. You've got to do some figuring out. So I started studying things on NOAA and figuring out how to decide when the wind was going to blow and when it wasn't going to blow, and just have studied that over the years. And then, of course, and I haven't sailed on all the Finger Lakes. I think I've sailed on 6 of them.
Wow.
But you said all of them. I don't think it's all of them. It's only 6. But
you got a bucket list now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah. And so anyway, seemed like some of the people were wondering, how do I know and where to go? So I was like, well, it's okay. I got to figure it out for myself anyway. It only takes 10 minutes to write it up and put it on Finger Lakes board.
You're a fast typer then, because it's always very in depth.
Well, not a fast typer, but maybe it's 15-20 minutes. But
I can appreciate that. Besides it being regionally focused, you also offer site options. I
well,
that,
so and I
haven't.
I'll have to admit, I've been thinking about it with you guys, sort of spurring me on. My southern shore of Ontario has really been more Fairhaven, because that's a straight shot from Ithaca, I probably should get up to Webster a little bit because I understand that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
But aside from the Rochester area, and I tend to prefer a little up lake or down lake, depending on Lake Erie. I tend to more than Hamburg per se, but otherwise I've gone to sail a bunch of places. You learn things, you figure out where's the launch and where is it going to be easy, where is it going to be hard, and what are the right wind directions for it, and
even type of sailing though you've preferred to.
But so the thing is if you're really into windsurfing in New York, you've got to have gear for any kind. It's because if you just have a 5.0 and a small or smaller, then then you're storm sailing and it's what you're going to get. And we have sailors here in the area that like that, and that's fine. But you're not going to head off and just kind of a what if scenario to the Eastern Shore and go to Southwick if you're not sure it's really going to be blowing. And what if you get there and it's 10 and there's waves, but it's 10? It's okay. So then what you need is a longboard, and your 5.0 will work. And you can catch waves and surf sail, and it's a very different kind of experience, but at least you didn't go there for nothing and get skunked. So I figure if we're going to get people that go out and try and do things, then if that's a knowledge that I've got, there's no point in not sharing it.
Thanks.
So
keep it up. I appreciate it. I know a bunch of the other guys do too. We're discussing it. We've had a lot of people participating and talking on the forum as of the past month or so. And certainly I put that website out there, but it's more for the community. It's not my site per se. It's I just happen to admin it because I love the community that comes with the sports that we love. And
well, I'm very grateful, and I salute you, sir, for doing this, and I'm very happy to help contribute because I'm happy to be back up for you.
Thanks, thank you. You talked about that great day. That's like will stay in your memory for a long time.
October
on Seneca
3rd?
Lake.
Yeah.
There were, you always overestimate these things. I always overestimate the amount of time I spent windsurfing on the water, but it seemed like there were 25.
Oh, there were.
Yeah, people out in the sun, wind, water.
There were 25 windsurfers, and there were probably as many kiters. And there was not all on the water. There were people there at the time. And I think out on the water at any one time was probably like 30.
Yeah.
Because people come in and they change sails and they rest a little bit and stuff, or they're swimming. And so it was really bright and colorful, and it was great. That's what it's like to sail under the Golden Gate Bridge when it's really cranking there, and there's just hundreds of people out on they have a bigger area really, but hundreds of people out on the water, and
but in that bigger area, when you look this way and you can see somebody kiteboarding or windsurfing, and you look that way and even there's somebody over there doing the same thing. Like, and that it was wall to wall in a way, not in a rush hour traffic kind of way, but it was all over the place, and it was cool to see.
Wonderful. It was great. It was a great day.
We talked about and have been discussing through, like, what if this day happens again? Just making sure that we've got everything in line to have everybody be successful. But because these are so few and far between, it was something that most of us had never experienced, being on the water with that many people. It was.
If you go to Hatteras, you can be, in certain launch sites like Canadian Hole and Avon. You can get into that sort of thing, and a little bit up in at the Real Slick on the Outer Banks, but not much like that here in New York. That was the first time, I guess back in the heyday of the '80s, it used to be like that quite a bit. But to see it again is encouraging.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, quick talk about your experience in the in the southern area, southern reaches of the Finger Lakes. You're from there, so when I meet you and see you, normally it's in Geneva on a south wind. and you've talked more at length on the forum about various launches and places to different lakes to go. Who do you bump into? Do you see many people down there? I know there's places. I know
Ithaca?
Cornell has a sailing club.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of windsurfers in Ithaca. I tend to.
And they're a good bunch of people, and they can really sail.
Folks. They're good folks, and several of them have really gotten good, and I have to hand it to them because they've gotten good on one of the lousiest winds that I know of.
And if you can sail those kind of winds,
and if you can learn and get good in that kind of wind, then that's really a lot of perseverance and challenge because because the plateau is about 400 feet above lake level and it's down in a gorge. The winds in the Ithaca area and Watkins, unless it's just straight down the channel for Seneca. The winds are swirly there, and it's makes it much more difficult. Where
are places? Where are people learning to windsurf down there? Or
East Shore, the Cayuga Windsurfing Club or Cornell Windsurfing Club is there at East Shore at the marina that Cornell owns, and it's not affiliated with the marina, I don't believe, but they. Cornell is nice and allows people to launch there, and there's a rack with a bunch of gear now. And that club was rather moribund when I arrived in Ithaca, but it's really gotten many things back together. They got good membership.
They do.
Clinics, beginners clinics in June, and then sometimes during the summer I think they do some educational things. So it's pretty useful group down there. A lot of kiters down there as well. Some of whom are beginning to discover that Seneca is pretty good.
Yeah.
And because they tend to it's a long drive, so they tend to just use the wind that they got. But people are going to find out that more days like October 3rd, and we'll get a lot of people coming.
And I think October 3rd worked out so well. We had people had, I think it had been even if you were looking for light wind, it had been a wind-starved summer season, and there were people just, oh gosh, I just looking for that great day, that sunny, beautiful, it was summer-like in the fall, but and it really came together, and I think people were able to be there because we all have jobs, most of us. There's a couple of the crew that are lucky enough to be retired and not know what day it is when they open their day planner, but and not have it matter. But it was a really special, really cool day, and it's been great for me. Again, I love the community, and we'll transition to that in the things I love segment. But
okay.
But it's been great. So, and maybe we should transition to the things I love segment. We do a thing here where you can talk about anything, bring in something, just discuss anything something that you love. It can be about windsurfing, something that or kiteboarding, something that has something to do with your life and who you are and your enjoyment. And Geoff, I think you brought something that you love.
I did, and I'm gonna link it together. Actually, you'll think I'm a one-trick pony, but so those of you who met him, this was my dog Rusty, and he's been gone just about 2 years now. And he lived actually. So it was unusual. He came up to me. He was a foundling, and he wandered up when I was windsurfing at that little lake in Lake Arthur in north of Pittsburgh, and I was sort of shamed into taking him home and trying to find who he belonged to. And after a month, I couldn't find who he belonged to, but he was such a great dog that I decided, well, you can stay. And we were great companions. And he died of cancer. He was almost 16. And
wow.
In the last years of his life, I spent probably 4 hours a day walking with him or taking him out and for morning, evening, and then a major walk given time to him so that he could have his dog time. That it wasn't just me, that he could be
your lover.
He could be the dog, and he liked to go out and run and ski and do the things that I like to do, so that wasn't hard. But I'd take him to the woods and stuff. And then after he was gone, My overriding sensation was it wasn't hard to do all that. And if I could have had done anything else, I would have given him more.
Sure.
And because it's giving me more.
Sure.
And so then the question came to me was, well, why don't we do that to ourselves? And I think windsurfing is an outlet, and kiteboarding and stand-up paddleboarding, those are ways that you do that for yourself. And I personally, my life experience is that being outside and playing, that's what Rusty and I used to do, and that's what I think everybody needs to do.
Nice.
And it's very hard to, with you got kids, you got job, you got lots of obligations and all that sort of stuff. It's very hard to make the time to do those things, but I really think that's something that in America we really need to do a better job of that. So that's why
Agreed.
I thought I would bring a picture of Gold Rusty Doug.
Love it. That's very appropriate, and you did draw it all together. I might have talked about it before. I love the community. I love the people that have been contributing, the people like yourself that have decided to go do a little bit more. Why didn't I do a little bit more? And teach people, and because it ultimately did help. It came back and you benefited from it as well. And so I appreciate the people that have special talents that they share. Whether it's the guys that are humorous writers that post stuff on the forum or report on what they did, or I had a good friend, Shortboard Joe, that I broke the nose of my board, and he's got the know-how to repair. I would take on the project, but I didn't have the time, and he took my board and he was letting it dry, and we didn't communicate. And I said, hey, maybe I come over on Sunday and we get at that board. Oh, Dougie, that's already done. So and just I appreciate the community of people that kind of come together around our sports. And I've said it before, but Jay and I, when Jay and I are sitting here talking, and we started doing this podcast, we talked about the community, and that's kind of my big thing. There's community people out at Ho'okipa Beach Park in Maui right now. The AWT-PWA Aloha Classic is going on.
Oh, is that now?
It started. The opening party was last night, and apparently the contest, I don't know if they're sailing, but they're in the window of the contest.
Wow. So is it really appropriate to have Maui coffee?
Yeah. Thank you, Larry, at Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters. So unless there's anything else for the good of the cause, we've kind of reached the end of the show. I think it's been a great pleasure to come and help you out with this. Been glad to have you here. Really enjoyable. Taking often for some people, and I'm not saying you per se, but it's kind of coming out of your comfort zone for some people. And thank you for taking that leap for windsurfing. And I appreciate you being here. I miss my buddy Jay. I wish he was here too, because we always have good laughs and good conversation. But ladies and gentlemen, Freaky G, Geoff Moore, has been our guest on the Finger Lakes Sports podcast today. He's a valued member of the family. November will be our next show, so stay tuned for great discussion. Hoping, fingers crossed, to have a real kite-centric show and have Jay Gordon back in studio leading things. So that's the end of our show. If you need to know anything else, you can go to fingerlakes1.com and check out the FLBS podcast page, or you can visit RochesterWindsports.com. For any help or guidance you might need for windsurfing, kiteboarding, and stand-up paddling, anything else. For the Finger Lakes Sports podcast, I'm Doug Willard. We'll see you out there.